Hey there, and welcome to your deep dive. Today, we're tackling this question. Why and how do humans turn into beasts? And the other way around.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, it's an old question, but still feels super relevant,
Totally.
And to really dig into this, we're checking out the work of this philosopher, Michel.
Okay.
He had some really interesting thoughts on fables, especially the ones by La Fontaine.
Ah, La Fontaine. I'm intrigued. It's funny how fables, we think they're just for kids, but they actually say a lot about us, don't they?
Right. Like way deeper than we realize. Serres definitely thought so. He was looking at how those stories, going all the way back to Aesop, deal with this whole metamorphosis thing.
Metamorphosis, yeah. And it's not just like a literary analysis he's doing. He brings in science, thermodynamics, chaos theory, wild stuff.
Seriously. He was making these connections nobody else was making. And it's funny because Serres was really drawn to La Fontaine. And La Fontaine was a pretty serious dude,
Yeah, not exactly who you'd picture writing whimsical fables.
Exactly. So why do you think someone like that, in the 17th century no less, would be so into these, kind of out there tales of transformation?
Well, you got to remember, back then was a huge time of change. Think about it. The world was shifting from polytheism, with all its crazy, often violent myths, to this whole monotheism thing focused on love and charity.
Okay, yeah, that's a big shift.
Huge. And Serres, he thought La Fontaine was using fables to deal with this beastly side of humans that he felt modern society was starting to forget about. Like, we were trying to be all good and virtuous, but La Fontaine knew something darker was still there, under the surface.
So it's like he was trying to show us something we didn't want to see about ourselves.
Exactly. He was holding up a mirror, reminding us that we've got the potential for both good and evil inside us. And Serres thought understanding those ancient myths and how they connect to fables is super important even for us today, because we might not like to admit it, but we haven't really escaped our more, shall we say, primal instincts.
That's kind of a scary thought. So where do we even begin to unpack this whole beast within idea? Where did Serres think these transformations start?
Well, he was all about the body. He believed that metamorphosis actually starts with our physical selves, with our gestures and movements. He even talked about watching a friend once and being struck by how much he reminded him of a shark.
Whoa, a shark. That's intense.
Right. Have you ever noticed how someone can just have this, animalistic quality about them?
Oh, absolutely. Like, I remember this one time. Oh, absolutely. Like, I remember this one time I was at a party and there was this guy, and the way he moved, it was like he was slinking through the room.
Yeah.
Like he was sizing everyone up.
Totally. And I couldn't help but think of like a panther or something. It was kind of unnerving, but also fascinating at the same time.
It is fascinating, isn't it, how these ancient instincts kind of peek through. And Serres, he was convinced that we humans were natural imitators. Like, our first teachers were actually the animals all around us. Which makes sense if you think about it. I mean, kids learn by copying everything they see, right?
Exactly. They are like little sponges. But Serres takes this even further, okay? He's saying our bodies, our gestures, they're like a whole language before language. Like, living hieroglyphics is what he called them.
Oh, living hieroglyphics. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But what do you mean a language before language?
So it's like these gestures, these movements, they're full of all this knowledge, right? Knowledge we don't even realize we have. And by imitating, by embodying those movements, that's how we first start to understand the world,
So you're saying our bodies, they hold this ancient wisdom, this primal vocabulary, and we're constantly speaking it without even knowing it. That's pretty wild.
It is wild. And to think Serres was onto this way before modern science caught up with this whole embodied cognition thing.
He was ahead of his time, that's for sure. But, it's true. We tend to get so caught up in thinking and language that we forget how intelligent our bodies really are.
Totally. We create this separation between our mind and body, but Serres is saying they're totally connected.
Yeah, like our bodies aren't just along for the ride. They're part of how we experience and understand the world.
Exactly. And this actually leads us to a really important part of metamorphosis for Serres' relationships, because real transformation, whether it's literal or metaphorical, it rarely happens in isolation. Like, think about that Greek myth, Actaeon. He gets turned into a stag, right?
Oh, right. And then his own hunting dogs end up killing him. Tragic.
Totally tragic. But it makes you think, what's the message there? How do relationships play into our own transformations,
Yeah, because his dogs didn't even recognize him, right?
Yeah.
It's like he was a stranger to them.
Exactly. And Serres used the story to illustrate this whole host-parasite dynamic that happens in relationships. It's powerful stuff, even a little unsettling, but it can lead to some major changes. Sometimes good, sometimes not so much.
Okay, I gotta ask, how does this host and parasite thing play out in La Fontaine's fables? I'm drawing a blank.
Oh man, they're full of it. A perfect example, the cicada and the ant. The cicada's singing all summer, then winter hits, and he's got nothing. But the ant's prepared.
Oh yeah, classic fable. Be prepared.
Right. But look closer. On the surface, yeah, it's about hard work, planning. But Serres, he saw something else going on.
Like what? Something darker?
Exactly. The ant hoarding all those resources, it's almost like a metaphor, right? Like it's draining the life out of the cicada, leaving it helpless.
Whoa, I never thought about it like that. So it's not just about the cicada being lazy. The ant's behavior plays a part too.
100%. Serres wanted to highlight how power imbalances, taking advantage, even in subtle ways, it can lead to these metaphorical transformations where one side gains the other, not so much.
That's kind of a bleak outlook. So are all the relationships in La Fontaine so messed up? Is there any hope?
Oh, there's always hope. Serres wasn't all doom and gloom. Like, remember the members in the stomach?
Vaguely. Remind me.
So basically, all the body parts are all resentful of the stomach, right? They think it's just lazy greedy.
Yeah. They think the stomach's just chilling while they're doing all the work, right?
Exactly. But then they realize, yeah, the stomach gets to eat, but then it also nourishes the whole body. Everybody wins.
It's a nice image. We're stronger together kind of thing.
Right. And Serres, he saw this as a symbiotic contract. It's this mutually beneficial relationship. Everyone contributes, everyone benefits, and the whole system thrives.
So it's not just about avoiding the whole parasite thing. It's about building these win-win relationships.
Exactly. And it's not just personal. He thought this applied to everything. Institutions, communities, even the economy.
Speaking of the economy, gotta ask, how does money tie into this whole metamorphosis thing for Serres? Money turns us into beasts. Sounds kind of extreme. Money turning us into beasts, huh? Okay, I gotta admit, that's a new one for me. How does Serres even begin to connect those two things?
Well, he uses this fable, the milkmaid and the milk pot, to kind of illustrate it. You familiar with that one?
It's coming back to me, vaguely. Refresh my memory.
Sure, so there's this milkmaid, right? She's walking along, got a pail of milk on her head.
Okay, yeah.
And she starts daydreaming, picturing all the amazing things she's gonna buy when she sells that milk. Getting a little ahead of yourself.
Ah, okay, yeah, and
then, boom. She trips, spills the milk, all her fancy plans down the drain. Classic cautionary tale.
Right. Don't count your chickens before they hatch, or however that goes. But you're saying there's this whole other layer to it about the economy.
Totally. See, Serres, he saw those daydreams as this metaphor for what money does to us. Think about it. The milk, that's something real, right? Tangible value. But when she starts thinking about trading it for other stuff, she's in this abstract world of money where the possibilities seem endless.
I see, yeah. She gets so focused on the potential, she forgets about the actual milk itself, the real thing.
Exactly. And it's easy to lose sight of that, right? We get so caught up chasing money, sometimes we forget about what actually matters.
It's like that saying, money can't buy happiness, but it can buy you a jet ski to ride to your therapist's office.
Right. There you go. But there's this other part Serres focuses on, the imagery, the spilled milk, that blank whiteness. He saw that as really important.
Interesting. What do you mean?
Well, it's like this symbol for money itself, money's potential, right? It can become practically anything, just like that blank slate of white.
Oh, I see what you mean. Just like you can turn milk into cheese, butter, whatever.
Yeah.
Money's this starting point for all these possibilities, good or bad.
Exactly. And here's where it gets really cool. Serres connects this back to us, to metamorphosis. He's saying our bodies, they're kind of like that blank slate too, capable of so many things depending on, well, everything. The world around us, our relationships, choices we make.
So we've got this potential to change, like money can change forms, but what we become, it all depends on what's influencing us.
Exactly. And this is where Serres gets really empowering, I think. We're not just like puppets. Yeah, we're influenced by all these external things, but we have a choice, Like, the milkmaid, she could have been more careful. We can choose to be more aware of what's shaping us and make decisions to become, a better version of ourselves.
So we all have this power within us, this potential for metamorphosis.
Absolutely. The question is, what are we going to transform into, right? And that starts with realizing we've got this blank slate potential and then making conscious choices about how we want to fill it in.
That's a powerful thought to end on. What will you become? Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everyone. Until next time, keep those metaphorical wheels turning.